Haha, it's really funny. Tang Yunban was shopping at a roadside stall, planning to buy a pair of cool sunglasses, but inexplicably hit a brick on the back of his head. But he didn't expect that after waking up, he changed his identity, changed his body, changed his nationality, and changed his time. This is the fall of 1996. His name is Dunn Williams Walker. He is 18 years old this year and is engaged in film-related work. A studio assistant, to be exact. It's hard to say, it's just a bunch of miscellaneous things. However, the tag hanging on his chest still gave Dunn a sense of sanctity and mission that he had never had before, because the name on it Titanic. Hey, I've watched a lot of movies in the past, but we don't know how to act, and secondly, we don't know how to direct, write a script. What can we do on this set? We can't run for a lifetime, right? Dunn sighed, shook his head, and walked to the studio of 20th Century Fox. In the past 2 weeks, the crew will shoot indoor scenes here. Hey, little Dunn, if you don't come, Miss Winslet will be angry. As soon as he saw Tang En, an eager figure flashed out immediately, pulling him in without any explanation. Tang En has been reborn for 3 days and has a certain understanding of some people in the crew. The person in front of him is named George Paxton, and his identity is the same as Dunn. It is said that he has been on the crew for 6 years and is still the lowest level assistant on the set. Hollywood, it's hard to mix. Please. George, it's only 7:15, and it's not working time yet. Dunn said displeased. George smiled bitterly and said, what are the working hours for our work? If the big man needs it, we have to do it. Dunn said helplessly, okay, George, then you must first tell me why Miss Winslet is looking for me. This. George's face froze, unable to speak. A hint of suspicion flashed on Dunn's face. George has a good relationship with him, what makes him reluctant to say it? Don, have you been to Miss Winslet's dressing room yesterday? George lowered his voice and looked strange. Yeah, there was something wrong with her chair. I went to help fix it. Dunn frowned and glanced at him, is there any problem? Just repairing the chair. Yeah. Dunn's eyes suddenly opened and he said in surprise, could it be that Miss Winslet lost something? It's definitely not me. George said bitterly, lost things? If only it were that simple. Dunn's complexion finally changed. Is it more serious than losing something? Once this stigma takes hold, I am afraid that even the job will not be guaranteed. What happened? George looked around, you really didn't do it. Tang En said angrily, nonsense, I don't even know what happened now. George stared at him for a while, then whispered, someone moved Miss Winslet's underwear. Hey! Dunn looked blank, what do you mean? Was it put away by the costumer? No. George paused and sighed, you'll know when you go. Don't admit it if you did it anyway. Dunn followed him step by step and came to Kate Winslet's dressing room. I saw the famous Ruth sitting in front of the dressing table, with makeup artists and stylists working by her side, her expressions focused and meticulous. It's just that the 2 female assistants behind them had serious faces, especially after seeing Tang En, hatred seemed to burn in their eyes. Miss Winslet, Dunn is here. With a flattering smile on his face, George nodded and bowed, selling well everywhere. Tang En didn't like his behavior. Everyone is human. Who is higher than who? What happened to the heroine? Can the heroine be framed at will? Hello Miss Winslet, do you have anything to do with me? Tang En's slightly flat tone instantly angered her assistant. She endured her anger and scolded, you bastard, I have never seen such a disgusting man as you. Tang En frowned and said, Miss, what happened? Look by yourself. The female assistant pointed to the side and saw a pair of white underwear hanging on the wall. It was crumpled, not like the intimate clothing that female stars should have. Tang En glanced at her suspiciously, stepped forward, observed closely, and found that the inner side of the underwear had scabbed into a white layer. Thinking of this wrinkled shape again, Kate Winslet's anger, Dun's face suddenly changed, and he suddenly woke up. No wonder Kate's face is frosty, no wonder the female assistant is furious, it turns out that her underwear has been desecrated. Miss Winslet, this is definitely not what I did. Dun realized the seriousness of the matter, and his voice was heavy and loud. Who else could it be if it wasn't you? Yesterday afternoon, you were the only one who came to this room. Seeing that Tang En was still arguing, the female assistant became even more annoyed. An 18-year-old boy, who is considered handsome, how could he do such a dirty thing? So disgusting, so perverted. George accompanied him with a smile and said cautiously, although Tang En is young, he has a good character. He shouldn't be able to do such a thing, right? He really wanted to speak for Dun, but the years of oppression on the set made him have a deep respect for big stars. The female assistant said angrily, it's not him, who else could it be? I've already asked someone, and there are at least 3 people who can testify. He stayed here for a long time yesterday afternoon before going out, and he looked satisfied after going out. It was Miss Winslet who asked me to come and fix the chair. Dun's brows were slightly wrinkled, and there was a bad feeling. But I didn't let you do anything else. The sedentary Kate Winslet finally couldn't help but interject. Tang En took a deep breath and said lightly, Miss Winslet, I think there must be some misunderstanding in this. It concerns my innocence. I want to invite those 3 people to come over and confront them. A bit of impatience flashed on Kate Winslet's face, and she said coldly, no, there's no need to make a big fuss. This kind of thing happens, it is very unfair to women. Especially in a mixed set, an unclear explanation may even have an impact on her reputation. If it's other times, it's fine. Hollywood, what's a little rumor? But she is different. She is already engaged to British director Jim Terry Allerton, and she will get married after the movie is released. Such rumors at such a time will have a big blow to her image. Actually, she didn't care too much about this matter. As an 18-year-old child, who doesn't make a little mistake? Apologize, that's all after making corrections, but I didn't expect this Dun to be so denial and sophistry. It's disgusting. Dun didn't know what Kate Winslet was thinking, only that his innocence could not be compromised, and his tone was a bit tough, I insist. You. Kate Winslet was really angry, since she couldn't resolve the big and small matters in private, then she could do it in business. Jenny, help me call Hilda and ask her to come over. The female assistant gave Dun a sad look, then turned and left to contact Kate Winslet's agent, Hilda Quelly. Once the trouble comes to the agent, the result will be very serious. Even if it is proved that Tang En was framed, this kind of committing the following behavior can bid farewell to Hollywood for the rest of his life. It seemed that Kate was really angry. This Tang En, who is wretched and filthy, is still self-righteous and arrogant. Who do you think you are, and dare to talk back to the heroine? Dun looked calm. Official business? This is the best. Cut. This one is over. With a shout from James Cameron, everyone on the set breathed a sigh of relief. A simple literary play is just a conversation between several characters at the dining table, and it took 3 hours to shoot. Not to mention all the staff, even Kate Winslet, her mouth was dry when she read the lines, so she quickly asked the assistant for a glass of water. Tang En watched all this from a distance, and secretly admired in his heart. The reputation of the tyrant on the set really isn't fake. There were nearly 100 people on the set, and in front of Cameron, all of them were as obedient as little white rabbits. Then just when everyone thought they could relax for a while, James Cameron's angry voice sounded again. Mandy! What the are you doing? Tell me, what the are you doing? James Cameron roared with red eyes, holding a pair of knives and forks on the dining table. I shot the 1912 Titanic, Nada from 1996. Everyone stood still, not daring to breathe. Mandy Clayson, who was in charge of the props team, came over in a panic. Seeing Cameron's expression, he smiled bitterly in his heart, knowing that something was wrong. In order to save costs, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com did not specifically ask the manufacturer to build a knife and fork specially for the Titanic in 1912, because such details would hardly have any impact on the film. It's just that Cameron is paranoid and a perfectionist, especially in details. He strives to be perfect. Replace all. With almost no thought, Cameron made an immediate decision. As soon as this remark came out, several producers and assistant directors of the film changed their color. Cameron's decision is too hasty. Isn't it necessary? We've already shot a lot of shots. If we change the shots, it's not good. Cameron's good friend and one of the producers, John Landau, persuaded softly. Cameron said beyond doubt, then cancel it all and shoot again. This way we will lose at least $2 million. John Landau said solemnly. I will solve the missing budget. Cameron didn't care, the task here is to make the movie well. John Landau looked bitter. James Cameron's temper is so stinky, because of this, the ups and downs of Fox film have been broken. If you go to ask for money again, there will definitely be another quarrel within Fox Pictures. At this moment, an assistant came to Cameron and whispered, Miss Winslet's agent is here. What's the matter? Cameron was startled. The assistant said, it seems that a studio assistant named Dunn annoyed Miss Winslet. Cameron was so angry that he dared to bother him with such a trivial matter. What's even more angry is that a small studio assistant dares to anger his heroine. No wonder Kate is in such poor shape today. Give me an extra week's salary and let that person get out of here. An internal meeting at Fox Pictures. Smoke lingers. There were 5 people sitting around the round table, all looking ugly. Bill McNick, Cock Airman and CEO, Tom Rothman, Cock Airman and President, Jack Howard, Chief Operating Officer, Jim Garnopoulos, Head of Production, Production Manager and Executive Producer of Titanic Grant Hill. James' requests are too many, which has affected the normal operation of 20th Century Fox. Jack Howard, the Chief Operating Officer, took the lead. The company's current situation is not good. In order to support the filming of James Cameron, there is no excess liquidity. Now he wants to increase his budget by another $20 million, unless he takes a loan from the bank. If it was another director who dared to make such unreasonable demands again and again, he would have been fired long ago. It's just that this project was personally controlled by the company's top leader, Bill McNick, with strong means, and he couldn't say some things clearly. As the company's seconding command, Tom Rothman had his own abacus, took a puff of cigar, and asked lightly, Grant, tell me, what the is that guy doing? Grant Hill looked bitter. Jamie, he's a good director, but he's almost paranoid. Jack Howard said angrily, paranoia? I think this is your indulgence. What the is James trying to do? Want to bring down 20th Century Fox? Grant Hill glanced cautiously at Bill McNick, and muttered in his heart that if the boss had not strongly supported Cameron behind his back, he would have robbed control of the studio long ago. Okay, if you have any questions, you can discuss it, don't argue. Bill McNick maintained the order of the meeting with a calm expression, and at the same time showed his right to speak out as the leader. Jimmy, what are your thoughts? Jim Garnopoulos is a talented person. As the director of the production department, he is highly valued by the big boss Murdoch. He pondered a little and said, in any case, the company can no longer support James as unconditionally as before. But he wants $20 million now. Bill McNick was very rude and didn't give Jim Garnopoulos and the slime a chance. Jim Garnopoulos was secretly annoyed and said, actually, there are only 3 solutions, and everyone should know that. Tom Rothman's eyes lit up and he finally found an opportunity. Meetings are not as simple as discussing issues, but more about power struggles. Tom Rothman is the company's president and second-in-command. He has coveted the CEO position for a long time. Now Bill McNick's Titanic has made the company a mess. Others dare not speak out, but to him it is a shame. An opportunity to go up. Which three options? Tom Rothman smiled and looked at Jim Garnopoulos with a desire that could not be concealed in his eyes. Helpless, Jim Garnopoulos had no choice but to say, the first is to borrow money from banks, the second is to borrow money from other companies, and the third. What's the third? Tom Rothman said eagerly. Jim Garnopoulos took a deep breath and gritted his teeth, change director. As soon as the words change director came out, the meeting room was instantly deadly quiet. Tom Rothman best smiled and looked at Bill McNick with all his leisure, and sure enough, his face was ashen. James Cameron is his insistence. This is not only a director's position, but also represents his authority. Bill McNick narrowed his eyes slightly and asked in a deep voice, "Do you want to change directors?" Jim Garnopoulos nodded. It seems that this is the best solution now. The current predicament of Fox Films, the Titanic project has been pending for a long time, and the root cause is James Cameron. This problem is not solved. No amount of money is worth it. Tom Rothman was very satisfied with his tough attitude and said with a smile, although Jimmy's statement is extreme, it has some truth. The Titanic project has been going on for too long, and it was originally scheduled to be released next summer, but take a look James' progress, it would be good to have a Christmas release. Grant Hill nodded and said, yes, according to Jamie's current shooting progress, next year's summer season will definitely not catch up. Jack Howard frowned and said, then let's make a change. James has already caused too much trouble and can't continue. It was unanimous approval to replace James Cameron. Bill McNick was not in a hurry to express his position, and slowly lit a cigar. He was thinking. With his absolute power as CEO, of course, he can continue to support Cameron with a tough attitude. If the project is successful, he is the first credit, but once the project fails. If there is a substitution, it is only a small loss at the moment, which can be recovered slowly, but once Cameron messes up the project, he has only one way to be fired. Is it a fatal blow? Or to avoid the edge for a while? Bill McNick took a few deep breaths of his cigar, looked calm, and asked indifferently, you all want to change directors? The others nodded in unison. Tom Rothman was very satisfied with the current scene and looked at Bill McNick with a smile. Old man, do you still want to persevere? If you had followed my advice early on and changed directors, how could there be so much later? The original budget of Titanic was only $85 million, but now it has increased to $160 million. In this way, Cameron is not satisfied, but also wants to add another $20 million. Crazy? Now, sit back and watch Bill McNick's embarrassment. Decide, Bill, do you want to fire James? There was a little more schadenfreude on Tom Rothman's face. Dunn was downcast, he was fired. She didn't even have a chance to explain, so she was kicked out of the studio in a daze. He lived in a small hotel, where many people lived, all of whom came to Hollywood to find their dreams. But in this dirty, damp, and noisy hotel, where can you live? Dunn's entire net worth is only $500. The Hollywood dream is too ethereal. Tang En went to the bed with all his arms raised, and said to himself, dude, it's not that I don't work hard, it's really hard and dark in Hollywood. He was sure that he was framed. The other party is probably also a low-level studio assistant. Don't look at everyone's position is the same, but Dunn is able to get close to a big star like Kate Winslet, and there are more opportunities, which will inevitably make people jealous. Inexperienced. Tang En sighed and pulled out a pair of sunglasses from the bedside table. This is what he bought at a roadside stall in his previous life. It was because of this pair of sunglasses that he was born with a brick and was reborn in 1996. Dunn put on his sunglasses, and the light immediately became much softer and gentler. Hey? What is this? Tang En found a button the size of a sesame grain at the back of the frame. He pressed it curiously, and put on his sunglasses. Everything in front of him was different. This is an interface. It was as if a three-dimensional image appeared in front of the eyes. Obviously, this interface can only be seen by wearing sunglasses. The content of the interface is very complex, but the framework is very clear Hollywood. This is an interface that contains all the Hollywood information. The interface is divided into three major parts: producer, director, and actor. There are dozens of numerical values below. It should be a digital display of the capabilities of Hollywood artists, right? There was an icon in the upper right corner that kept flashing. Dunn clicked it, and a dialog box popped out immediately. A novice gift package, do you want to receive it? Tang En was stunned for a moment, then stretched out his hand and clicked OK in the air. Unexpectedly, it really works. The interface changed immediately, and a new dialog box popped up. Congratulations for receiving the novice gift package, including the mirror possession X1, and the stealing contract X2. Dunn didn't know what it meant, clicked on steal contract, and immediately jumped out a line of text explaining, the steal contract skill means that you can any signed or initialed artist contract in Hollywood. With every Oscar, there's one more contract stealing opportunity. Stealing the contract? Isn't that robbery? Dunn shook his head and laughed, but immediately thought of Kate Winslet and James Cameron. Especially Cameron, who didn't even give him a chance to defend himself, and fired him directly. It was so annoying. I don't know if this thing is useful. Tang En shook his head, a bit of anger appeared on his face immediately. If you dare to fire me, then I will fire you too. Dunn clicked twice on stealing the contract. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Are you sure to use the stolen contracts skill? Sure. As soon as the interface was changed, a row of densely packed contracts appeared in the center of the interface, with numbers marked below, a total of 18,536 pages. Didn't you list all the ongoing contracts in Hollywood? That's too many. Fortunately, Dunn found the search bar on the upper left, and typed in James Cameron. After changing the interface, it was really refreshing. James Cameron currently has only 12 contracts. Among them are the manager contract, assistant contract, partner contract. Of course, it also includes the producer contract, director contract, and screenwriter contracts signed with 20th Century Fox for the Titanic project. Tang En suddenly laughed. These contracts are all private and commercial secrets, and can be viewed by him generously, no matter whether the contract stealing skill is true or not. The search function alone is enough to be admired. Dunn first checked Cameron's producer contract. It was relatively simple. The production cost was $3 million. The director's contract is a bit more complicated. The director's fee is a base salary of $5 million, plus a 10% share of the global box office. The number of screenwriter contracts is small, only $350,000. The selection of these three contracts, as long as you are not stupid, naturally you have to choose the director's contract. Not to mention the $5 million box office. What is the concept of 10% of the global box office? The global box office of Titanic seems to exceed $1.8 billion, right? Dunn smiled slightly, chose the director contract without hesitation, erased 2 signatures of James Cameron, and generously entered his name Dunn Walker. Bill McNick is annoyed. Last year, his main movie Die Hard 3 was the box office champion. This year, his main film Earth Defense is also the box office champion. Who can guarantee that Titanic will not surprise the world in 1997? Bill McNick is obsessed with power. He doesn't like the feeling of being checked and balanced by his subordinates. James Cameron cannot be replaced. I still insist. Bill McNick said halfway through. A flash of light suddenly flashed in his mind, and for some reason, his beliefs were shaken inexplicably. "Bill, you still insist on using James?" Tom Rothman asked slightly sarcastically. Bill McNick took a deep breath and shook his head. "No, I mean, we have to stick to the attitude of fully supporting the Titanic project." Tom Rothman's face flashed a bit of disbelief. "Bill, what do you mean, you agree to change the director?" Bill McNick sighed. "James is so disappointing. Fortunately, the movie has just been shot, and there is still time to remedy it." Everyone present looked strange. When did this guy talk so well? Now the whole of the United States regards Titanic as a joke, but the huge investment has made Fox Films coerced and must move forward. Bet on James Cameron's success with a 1% chance. Unexpectedly, Bill McNick backed away. "Okay, since everyone agrees to make a substitution, let's discuss, who is the right person to take over Titanic?" Tom Rothman seized the dominance of the meeting as a winner. "I think Spielberg." "No, Steven is filming the Jurassic Park sequel, and I don't have time." Jim Garnopoulos shook his head. "I think Roland Emmerich is more suitable. The Earth Defense released this year has reached the box office. For $800 million, he has the ability to make Titanic well. Michael Bay is also good, and Brave to the Dead Island was well received. Jane DeBont is more suitable. Tornado is a good box office, and it is also a disaster film, which fits the theme of Titanic." "Enough." Bill McNick looked gloomy and let out a low voice. He hated this kind of uncontrolled meeting scene. He is the CEO of Fox Pictures, he is the number one. "Grant, you said James fired a studio assistant today." For some reason, Bill McNick's mind was in chaos, as if everything was out of control. He hates this feeling. He wants to prove the authority of the CEO again. "Yes, his name is Don Walker, and it is said that he had a little conflict with Kate. Grant Hill is a very conscientious producer and knows enough about the set." Don Walker. Bill McNick pondered a little, suddenly whimsical, and for some reason, he came up with an earth-shattering, weeping bold idea. "I think Don Walker is capable of directing Titanic, the only candidate." "What?" Everyone was shocked. All silence. "Grant Hill has his own plan. As long as James loses Bill McNick's support, he will be able to control the Titanic set." Jim Garnopoulos did not speak. 2 years ago, he vigorously purchased the movie copyrights of superheroes such as X-Men, Fantastic Four and Deadpool from Marvel, and is currently raising funds and building projects, intending to put X-Men on the big screen. Once the project is successful and the series continues, that's a huge credit, enough to get him a step further, especially if Bill McNick makes a mistake. Tom Rothman has also been waiting for Bill McNick's tricks. He has long been fed up with the other party's dictatorship and domineering. Now that he finally waits for the other party to make a mistake, how can he help him correct it? As for Chief Operating Officer Jack Howard, he was careful not to touch Bill McNick's bad luck. Seeing everyone's silence, Bill McNick made a final decision. "Since everyone has no objection, it's settled. Immediately send someone to inform James. In addition, early tomorrow morning, let Dunn come over to sign the contract." Note: Dunn came to Fox Pictures again dizzy. "This time, instead of going to the studio, I came to the CEO's office in the headquarters building." Hearing that it was to sign a contract, Dunn immediately thought of the magical picture that appeared after he put on his sunglasses yesterday. Is this all true? That pair of sunglasses? Is there really a system that can cheat in Hollywood? Dunn felt that his outlook on life had collapsed. Unbelievable. It wasn't until he came to the CEO's office and saw the smiling and modest Bill McNick, the forced laughing Grant Hill and the black-faced James Cameron that Dunn finally realized that everything was very real. "Are you done?" When Dunn appeared, Cameron questioned aggressively. Dunn smiled slightly. "Hello, James." Cameron was furious and shouted angrily, "Bill, what are you doing? You let this brat take my job?" Do you know that this will ruin Titanic? Bill McNick frowned slightly and said displeasedly, Jamie, calm down. What did you do in the director position of Titanic, don't you know? Cameron is very aware of the current situation of Fox Pictures, so he is grateful to Bill McNick and is ready to leave at any time, but he can't bear to have an 18-year-old child with no directing experience to replace him. Location. Bill, I know you've been under a lot of pressure for me, I'm very grateful, and I agreed to quit the director job. But we can't ruin this movie. Cameron spent a lot of effort on this film. He started writing the script in 1991, and started the project preparation in 1994. It took 2 years of preparation for the filming to officially start. He loves this project more than anyone, and he doesn't want to let his years of hard work go to waste. Bill McNick made a few more downward gestures and sighed, calm down, Jamie, calm down. Little Dunn is indeed a little younger, but I believe he can do the job. Tang En saw the needle and said loudly, of course. Titanic is a great project, and I will definitely do my best to write a great legend for this great project. Grant Hilson said, Little Dunn, well said. Bill McNick also laughed, young man, you have a gift for speaking. Cameron sneered, even if he is eloquent, it can't hide his mediocrity and incompetence in directing talent. Dunn has always respected Cameron, but he couldn't stand his continuous provocations, so he endured his anger and said, Mr. Cameron, you say that I am mediocre and incompetent, then tell me, if you continue to direct, are you sure the project will be successful? Movies are a high-yield and high-risk industry, who can guarantee a steady profit without loss? You can't guarantee it, but I can. Tang En patted his chest and vowed. Cameron sneered, you guarantee? What guarantee do you take? How much did you invest in directing this project? To recover the cost, the global box office will cost at least $500 million. Now Cameron is only a quasi-first-line director. The box office of True Lies is more than $300 million. For him, $500 million is still an astronomical figure. $500 million? Haha. Tang En laughed disdainfully, and said coldly, a mere $500 million, what is it? Boy, arrogant! Cameron shouted angrily. Bill McNick glanced at him displeased, and said earnestly, young man, it's good to have confidence, but don't talk big, it's not good for you. Tang En doesn't care, brother is a rebirth, don't you even have the capital to brag about it and pretend to be a big winner? Mr. McNick, you misunderstood, the $500 million box office. In my opinion, it's just a conservative estimate of the North American box office. Dunn raised his chest and instantly became the focus of the office. $500 million at the North American box office? What are you talking about? Cameron laughed angrily. Who do you think you are? Spielberg? Even Spielberg can't reach that number. Dunn shook his head calmly. So, Mr. Cameron, your pattern is too small. Is Mr. Spielberg a god? Can't you surpass it? Bill, do you really think this bratty brat can make Titanic well? Cameron asked angrily. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Bill McNick frowned, narrowed his eyes, and stared at Dunn carefully. After a long silence, he asked in a deep voice, you said that the North American box office can reach $500 million, then according to your opinion, the global box office will increase. How much can it reach? 1.5 billion is the guarantee, and 2 billion is the goal. Dunn's words were loud, like thunder. Okay. Bill McNick praised, I haven't seen an ambitious guy like you for many years. I remember the last time I saw him. It was Steven Spielberg before E.T. Cameron raised an ominous premonition, his face sinking like water. Grant, prepare the contract, it's not too late, we'll sign Mr. Dunn Walker. Bill. Enough. Bill McNick waved his hand, Jamie, this is my decision. The decision of the leader is unquestionable. Tang En secretly wiped off his sweat and breathed a sigh of relief, with a satisfied smile on his face. It worked. It turned out to be a real success. Magical sunglasses, cheating Hollywood. This time it's so arrogant. According to the California Talent Act, actors must have an agent present when signing contracts. The director is not included in this list because many times he will also be the producer. What Dunn stole was James Cameron's director contract, and the contract's salary was naturally based on Cameron's standards. A base salary of $5 million, plus a 10% share of the global box office. Hello, Titanic. Hollywood, here I come. Tang En crookedly wrote his name on the contract, shouting in his heart, in high spirits. Dunn has been able to be sure that his pair of sunglasses is amazing, and there is a cheating system that can be used in Hollywood. This is also the foundation of his unrepentant commitment, as a layman, to compete with James Cameron for the directorship of Titanic. Because when I turned on the sunglasses for the first time yesterday, I gave a novice gift package. Stealing the contract allowed him to successfully grab the director's position from Cameron, and mirror possession is the basis for his directing. The mirror possession skill, which can transfer the artist skills of any one person to another in Hollywood, is only valid for the duration of one movie. Every time the global box office accumulates more than $1 billion, an additional reward will be given once. Mirror possession skill. Dunn is also unambiguous, directly searching for James Cameron, the possessed object Dunn Walker. The mirror possession is completed. During the production project of Titanic, Dunn Walker will have the production, director, and actor skills of James Cameron. Tang En twisted his body and shook his head, and found that there was nothing unusual about his body, but he knew that his vision and ability had completely changed at this time. Especially the series of surprising thoughts and wild imaginations are really shocking. Dunn looked at the values of Cameron's various skills, and exclaimed in amazement, he was indeed a world-class director. There are more than 20 kinds of ability items under the production management, and the 5 most important skills are production, market judgment, literary and artistic aesthetics, project evaluation, and screenwriting. Tang En checked the skill displays of several big directors at random yesterday. Generally, the overall score is above 70 points, even if the ability is outstanding. But James Cameron's numbers are shocking. Production, 66 market judgment, 97 literary aesthetics, 83 project evaluation, 70 screenwriter, 89. The comprehensive score can reach 81 points. Especially in terms of market judgment, it reached an astounding 97 points, which made Dunn's eyes straight. He studied it for half the night yesterday, and he has never seen anyone who can score more than 90 points in a certain item. James Cameron is indeed well-deserved. Let's look at the 5 skill values of the director. Palm mirror, 91 plot design, 83 image thinking, 88 guidance, 93 camera, 95 overall rating, 90 points. Tang En's eyes widened, he took it, completely taken it. What's even more surprising is that among the attributes that are not very important in the back, the artist, special effects, and sub-shot scores all exceeded 90. This is an absolute genius-level director. As for the actor's 5 major skills, expressiveness, relaxation, naturalness, realism, and lines, Cameron's values are extremely poor and are not worth mentioning. Now Dunn has inherited Cameron's ability and is full of confidence. The crew, which took a day off because of the change of director, finally started work again. When the crew said that the new director was a little-known 18-year-old child, everyone was shocked. When I heard that it was Dunn Walker who was fired by Cameron, the expression became even more exciting. In particular, the heroine Kate Winslet and Dunn's friend George Paxton were in a mood like fire and ice. The crew normally starts work at 8 o'clock, but when Tang En appeared in the studio at 7:30, all the members were there. Everyone is here. Tang En concealed his inner excitement, showed a modest smile, and waved at everyone. Hello Director. Welcome to the Director. Mr. Director, you are so young. Miscellaneous voices sounded, and the pleasing meaning in those words permeated the entire studio. Hey, Dunn. Mr. Director. George Paxton came over with a look of joy, his eyes glowing, and he looked at Dunn up and down. His anticipation and excitement were hard to hide, and he also had deep scruples and flattery. His friend is the director. This is enough for him to show off in front of anyone. Hi, George, it's the same as before, we're friends. Dunn patted him on the shoulder. On the set of Titanic, George was his only friend. Yes, friend, we are friends. George's face flushed with excitement, and his words were incoherent. Dunn nodded. George, do you want to change jobs? George's tears were about to fall. Why didn't he understand what Dunn meant? He almost choked with excitement. Okay, I'll listen to you. Dunn nodded, his eyes swept to the side of Kate Winslet, who was standing aside with a bright smile on his face, but revealed embarrassment and tension that could not be hidden, and said lightly, from today onwards, you will be my boss. Personal assistant, not the studio assistant, but the director's assistant. The first task is to find out what happened that day, but I want to see who is trying to frame me. George was shocked and his face became ruthless. Of course, that kind of villain must not be spared when found out. Dunn smiled with satisfaction, walked over to Leonardo DiCaprio, looked at his handsome face, and said with a smile, Leon, how are you doing after a day's rest? In the past, on the set, Dunn was not even qualified to appear beside Leonardo, but now it is different. He is the director and the core of the whole movie. The salted fish turned over, and the superiority of the superior was naturally revealed. Leonardo didn't know Dunn at all, he only knew that the other party was the director. He was surprised that the other party was young, but at the same time he was also nervous. He straightened up and said, Mr. Walker, I'm fine. Just call me Dunn. Tang En smiled slightly and encouraged, keep working hard and make a good movie. Okay, Mr. Walker. Well, Dunn. Leonardo smiled relaxedly, and his nervousness was relieved a lot. It seems that this new director is gentler than James Cameron, has a good personality, should be easy to work with, and no longer has to worry about being scolded every day. At this moment, Dunn came to Kate Winslet, swept his eyes up and down, and praised, Kate, you are so beautiful today. Undoubtedly, Kate Winslet was the most nervous one on the set. Seeing Dunn approaching, she almost screamed out of fright. She reacted immediately, and immediately squeezed a sweet smile on her pretty face. Skirt, and a medieval lady salute, thank you, Mr. Director. Tang En laughed dumbly, and joked, you're very involved in the play, aren't you? Kate Winslet's face turned pale. It was a subconscious action in a panic just now, and she quickly said with a smile, I'm sorry, Mr. Director. Tang En waved his hand and interrupted her rudely, it is a good thing that you are deeply involved in the play, it shows that you have thought about it carefully. After a few words, Kate Winslet felt sweat on her back, bit her lip, but didn't know how to please him. She was afraid that Tang En would be worried about what happened that day. Dunn was very calm, so he wanted everyone to get ready to start filming. At this time, John Landau, Cameron's partner and one of the producers, suddenly stood up and said loudly, let's welcome Little Dunn back to the crew. Now, let Little Dunn tell you a few words, everyone. Applaud. Tang En's complexion changed, and two sharp eyes were immediately released in his eyes. Little Dunn? He is a director now. Even a friend like George should be called Mr. Director respectfully. What kind of onion is John Landau? Obviously, he was deliberately targeting. It was obvious that he was booing, but he focused on mentioning return to the crew and Little Dunn just to embarrass him. Let alone let him speak, he should speak well, but if he speaks poorly, it will inevitably affect his authority in the crew. Dunn took a deep look at John Landau, and he already understood the reason. John Landau is Cameron's friend and partner for many years. His actions like this are obviously helping Cameron to fight the injustice. It's just that Dunn doesn't know whether this is his own opinion or Cameron's backstory. Under everyone's attention, Tang En walked to a high platform, looked around at everyone, and asked, "I want to ask you a question, why are you shooting a movie?" This abrupt question made everyone startled, stunned, and did not dare to speak. Seeing that he was a little cold, George quickly said loudly, "For art, for faith, for humanity." Dunn shook his head, "If you are so holy, you should go and tell that this is a set, not a church." The crowd laughed. Suddenly, I felt that this young man standing on a high place was not the immature young man he had imagined, but the sense of humor in his steadfastness. It was clearly the temperament of a great director. John Landau sneered. He didn't believe that an 18-year-old child could handle such a big scene, not even Steve Spielberg back then. Tang En then asked, "Let's put it this way, it's very tiring to make a movie. Why do you all come here to suffer?" "Why? Of course I want to be a star. The most people at the scene are the extras." This answer can be said to reveal what this huge group is thinking. Even if Leonardo and Kate are willing to be tortured by Cameron, don't they want to be bigger stars and make more money? Tang En nodded lightly, gave the man a thumbs up, and said loudly, "Yes, it's for being a star. This is our common dream." After a pause, Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com Dunn put on a more tense tone, "You guys want to be stars, you want to be the hottest star in Hollywood. And what about me? I'm a director, I want to be one of the best directors in the world. Tell me, what are we relying on? Speak louder, I can't hear you, what do we have to rely on to realize our dreams? For what?" Under Tang En's continuous uproar and encouragement, the atmosphere like a pool of stagnant water finally became active, and the originally scattered voices finally merged into the river and the river at this moment. "Movie. What is it? Movie. Speak louder. Movie. Movie. Movie." In the studio, the atmosphere finally reached its climax. More than 100 people shouted in unison in this closed studio, "The momentum is magnificent and the waves are magnificent." Hundreds of people spoke in unison, the sound was like a dragon roaring in the sea, as if the roof of the house was about to be overturned, and even the earth was shaking. Where is this movie set? It is clearly a battlefield that is about to start a war. James Cameron quietly stood by and watched with cold eyes. Although he had been through many battles, he couldn't help but feel excited. Who doesn't have a dream? The Titanic is the only way for everyone present to realize their dreams. Only by making this film well can we be one step closer to our dream. Cameron understood Dunn's deep meaning, and looking at him again, it became a bit more complicated. Is he really only 18 years old? Also shocked was the old man John Landau. His face was blue and white, gloomy and dripping with water, and he sneered in his heart, "Boy, don't be too happy. Very good, this one is over." This scene of Ruth arguing with her fiancé was only repeated 3 times, and Dunn waved his hand, "Take a 15-minute break and prepare for the next shot." Stop. However, as soon as Dunn's voice fell, Cameron's furious voice came immediately, "Don, what are you doing? Will you direct the movie? That shot just now didn't meet the requirements, reshoot it." The studio was once again caught in a cold embarrassment. Dunn is very angry. This is not the first time Cameron has intervened in his directing of a film. He has repeatedly intervened. Are you the director or am I the director? Judging from Dunn's current vision, of course he knew that in the scene just now, Kate Winslet's expression was a little stiff, and her lines were a little nervous. With her strength, she could do better. But is it necessary? This is not a European literary film. In the final analysis, Titanic is still a Hollywood commercial blockbuster. The real selling point is the majestic ship and the shocking love. This kind of short shot of only a few seconds after the film is completed, no one cares at all. What's more, now that the cruise funds are tight, Tang En promised the top management of Fox Pictures to catch up with next summer's schedule, and really can't waste time and money on such trivial matters. What Dunn possessed was Cameron's professional ability, not his paranoid and stubborn spiritual attributes. He immediately said rudely, "Enough. James, this is not your job." Cameron was reluctant, staring at him and roaring, "You know Kate's performance is not good enough, why didn't you stop it? You will ruin the whole movie." Kate Winslet was also a little guilty, and whispered nervously, "Mr. Director, how about, let me try again?" Tang En said angrily, "Are you provoking me?" Kate Winslet was only 21 years old, her face was pale with fright, and her body couldn't help trembling. "I repeat, this one is over, now go to rest." Dunn pointed to the lounge and said coldly at Cameron, "Mr. Cameron, Titanic is not only your hard work, but also everyone's hope. I don't need you to tell me what to do, please get out of the way now." Actors, including Kate Winslet and Billy Zane, were clueless about the quarrel of such a big man, neither walking nor stopping, in a dilemma. John Landau came over at the right time, frowned and said, "Little Dunn, you are still young, and you may not know much about directing dramas. Listen to the advice of your predecessors, be modest, and ask for more advice, it will be good for you." Well, it's obviously relying on the old to sell the old, and morality has been kidnapped. But Dunn doesn't eat this set at all. "What kind of thing are you? You are the one who dares to point fingers in front of me, and you deserve it. Get out of here." Dunn said several swear words in a row, frightening everyone present, and everyone changed color. Is this too strong? Better than Cameron? Cameron at most shouted to the actors a few times, but John Landau was one of the main producers. This young director doesn't seem to be as modest as he looks on the surface, and his fiery temper is no worse than James Cameron. John Landau was dumbfounded. He couldn't even speak. He took a few steps back in a panic and pointed at Dunn, You, what did you say?" "I said let you go." Dunn was furious. He was really fed up with Cameron's meddling and John Landau's scheming. At this time, the representative of Fox Films, Grant Hill, walked over with a frown. Cameron was the first producer of the film, and it was not easy to lose face, but John Landau was different. Shen Sheng said, "John, what are you doing? Dunn is the director approved by the board of directors. Are you questioning the decision of the board of directors?" John Landau's face was gloomy, he took a deep breath, lowered his posture, and said calmly, "No, I'm just making some small suggestions to Director Walker. If there is any offense, I hope Director Walker will forgive me. This guy is also quick enough to make a decision immediately, abandon the car to protect the handsome, protect the face of Cameron, the first producer, and fight the contradictions on himself. It will make him thank himself, and in the third time, it will give everyone a good impression of maintaining the overall situation." Grant Hill nodded. Although he is only the third producer, he is the official spokesperson of Fox Pictures. After Cameron lost Bill McNich's favor, his power in the crew soared. "Okay, didn't Director Walker say it? This one is over, you all go to rest." Grant couldn't face Cameron's face, and pointed the finger at the actors who were stupidly standing there. Everyone was relieved and heaved a sigh of relief. The fierce quarrel that broke out suddenly subsided, but as everyone knows, Director Walker won again. Kate Winslet looked back at Dunn with a complicated look, with bitterness in her heart. Even a big director like Cameron has to give in the face of Dunn Walker's anger. How can she be an actress against the authority of the director? She doesn't regret it. Back in the lounge, Dunn waved his hand angrily, "Cameron is too much." Grant Hill smiled wryly, "Jamie is a bit rough, but he's a good guy, he just hopes the movie can be made better." "Humph. Dunn, of course, knew that Cameron was not targeting him, it was just a disagreement over the filming, otherwise he would have spoken ill of each other long ago. Just John Landau. Grant, fire John Landau, he will seriously affect our shooting progress. What? Grant Hill was stunned for a long time. This Dunn Walker is too narrow-minded, didn't he just quarrel once? And John apologized. It's not easy. He is the second producer. We have no reason to fire an important person for no reason. He put a lot of effort into the pre-production of the film. Grant shook his head, obviously disapproving of Dunn's idea. The reason? Tang En narrowed his eyes and pondered for a while. He went out and called his current assistant, George. How's the matter for you to investigate? George patted his chest and said, I checked it out. They were jealous. 3 studio assistants worked together to design the frame. Dunn was a little dissatisfied, that's all. What? George was stunned for a moment, a little overwhelmed. This is the truth. Tang En said in a deep voice, I suspect that this is behind John Landau's orders, go check it out again. What? George understands what Dunn means. Is this a design to frame John Landau? Grant Hill was also taken aback, this Dunn really doesn't give up until he achieves his goal. He quickly stopped, looked at Dunn, sighed, and smiled bitterly, I really convinced you. Forget it, anyway, the filming in Los Angeles is almost over, the crew is going to Mexico to shoot the big ship, I will let John go to New York for the set. Dunn finally smiled, this is the best. After seeing Dunn's domineering, Kyle Winslet is eagerly communicating with her agent on the phone. What the should I do now? He's like a devil when he gets angry. Kate's voice was trembling. Calm down, Kate, calm down. The agent reassured a few times, since he is the director, he will be responsible for the entire play. You are the heroine, and he will not embarrass you too much. But... Kate paused for a while, and panicked in her heart. But in the scene just now, I obviously felt that the performance was not good enough, but he let him pass. Is he deliberately vilifying me? Anything else? The agent on the other end of the phone showed a bit of surprise, this is an investment of nearly 200 million yuan. How dare he make jokes about this kind of thing? Kate smiled bitterly, Robert, you don't know, he just had a big fight with Cameron, and he also scolded John Landau. The scolding, it's hard to hear. This. The agent was silent for a while, and then said solemnly, Kate, in any case, you must immediately find a way to ease the relationship with him. This will most likely affect your future acting career. I just don't know how to ease up with him, that's why I asked you. You are a girl, a very beautiful girl. The agent increased his tone. Kate fell silent for a moment. Of course she understands the meaning of the agent's words, which is all too common in Hollywood. But... I'm already engaged. That British director? Forget it. This is Hollywood, and Hollywood has Hollywood rules. Kate, you have to understand that this play is very important to you, far more important than that British director. Agents pay more attention to profit than justice. In fact, this is a Hollywood habit. It's just that Kate is British. British people are more conservative than Americans, on marriage, on emotions, on friends, on culture. But, Kate, if you want to develop further in Hollywood, you must integrate into Hollywood. Not to mention you, even Princess Kelly and Marilyn Monroe, didn't they all come here? Kate Winslet sighed and nodded blankly, okay, I'll think about it. The agent said in a deep voice, Kate, you are going to Mexico City soon. There is the key to the whole play. You must hurry up and solve this problem. Kate calmed down, I see. After several days of fermentation, the news that the crew of Titanic changed directors finally broke out in the United States. Titanic, which was originally disliked by everyone, even appointed an 18-year-old Harry Boy to be the director, which not only shocked the gossip tabloids, but also some authoritative media in the United States. Chicago Reader, with the title "Fox Pictures Makes a Big Gamble, 18-Year-Old Children Turn the Tide," satirized Fox Pictures and Dunn. Since the establishment of the Titanic project, the top executives of Fox Films have made a series of tricks, making the thriving 20th Century Fox company almost bankrupt. 3 days ago, the top management of Fox Films, led by Bill McNick, even appointed an 18-year-old director is in charge of this project with an investment of nearly $200 million, which is really strange and unheard of. Los Angeles Times, on the topic of the arrogant rhetoric of the arrogant boy, is the $1.5 billion box office only a guarantee, and mercilessly attacked Tang and young and pompous is a good thing, but arrogant and doomed to fail. Dunn Williams Walker, named Titanic director, became a nationally famous figure in one fell swoop. But $1.5 billion guaranteed, $2 billion it's a rhetoric of purpose, and it looks more like a beautiful conception of teenage youth. Dunn Walker doesn't look like he's out of a childhood fairy tale. The New York Times commented more sharply, believing that Dunn Walker is destined to be a passerby in Hollywood, and also vaguely pointed out that Dunn is likely to be the victim of the high-level power struggle in Fox Films. From now on, he will be stunned, and even make his whole life as dark. The Times bluntly said, with so many directors in Hollywood, is it better than a young child? This is a blasphemy to Hollywood and an insult to all filmmakers. Some professional film review magazines completely negatively responded to the Titanic movie, believing that it is destined to be the largest loss-making movie in history. Fox Pictures and Dunn Walker will join hands to stage a movie for everyone. The biggest farce in Hollywood history. Fox Pictures instantly felt enormous pressure and was forced to hold a special press conference to explain it, saying that Dunn Walker was a talented director, better than Steven Spielberg back then. No less. It takes a lot of courage to be ordered in danger when Titanic is facing difficulties. Fox believes in Dunn Walker, and also believes that he can successfully operate the Titanic project and dedicate a classic masterpiece to fans all over the world. At the same time, a spokesman for Fox Pictures also pointed out that Mr. James Cameron has only stepped down as director. He is still the producer of the film. The filming and operation of Titanic are still under Cameron's control. Don't worry too much. It's a pity that such a statement quickly sinks into the sea amid endless criticism, accusation, and ridicule. Huge pressure, making people breathless. Even Rupert Murdoch, the big boss of News Corporation, called to question himself. Bill McNick was tough and firmly believed that Dunn Walker was the best candidate for the director of Titanic. This is equivalent to issuing a military order. Inside Fox Pictures, the atmosphere is chilling. Compared with the criticism from the outside world, the crew of Titanic was quiet. The reason is very simple. The professional skills shown by Dunn Walker are respected. Even James Cameron was deeply impressed by the many whimsical ideas during the shooting, and he said more than once, "Dunn's professional level is very high," which is surprising. Of course, if he can be more serious and detail the details, it would be better to do it better. Of course, there is one person who is more nervous than all others. She is Kate Winslet. The scenes in Los Angeles have been filmed, and the crew will fly to Mexico City tomorrow. There are some things that she has to solve. The filming of the day ended very early. Because of the flight tomorrow morning, everyone returned to the hotel early to prepare for a rest. Dunn allocated a set of luxurious guest rooms with a layout of 3 suites, with everything. This is how many times better than the small hotel he rented before. At 9 o'clock that night, Tang En took a bath and sat on the sofa in the living room in his pajamas, flipping through the storyboard script, holding a red pen in his hand to make corrections on it. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Boom! 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 Dunn got up and opened the door, and was surprised to find that the heroine Kate Winslet was standing at the door. She had obviously just had a bath, her brown blonde curly hair was lazily draped over her shoulders, and she wrote all her charms wetly. The blue-green eyes are like gems, inlaid on the white tender and lustrous jade surface, the red lips are delicate, and the teeth are like frost. I have to admit, she is really beautiful. Sexy, charming, warm, and generous. Tang En has seen her profile. She is 1.7 meters tall and weighs close to 122. Although she is not a model like a devil, she is by no means slanderous, words such as meat shreds and fat warm. It's just that Dun is very strange. It's so late, what's the matter? I'm sorry, Mr. Director, to bother you so late. Can I come over for a cup of coffee? Kate Winslet twiddled the shattered hair around her ear, with 1,000 amorous feelings. Tang En raised his eyebrows and glanced at her strangely. Come over for coffee in the evening, is your brain okay? Of course. Dun stepped aside and stretched out his hand, please come in. While Dun was not paying attention, Kate quickly relieved and patted her chest nervously. Kate knew that Dun Walker was actually very easygoing. Most of the crew directly called him Dun, but she didn't get approval and kept calling him Mr. Director rigidly. Her purpose today is to solve this problem. Poured a cup of coffee for Kate, Dun sat down on the sofa and continued to revise the split-scene script in his hand. Suddenly, a wisp of fragrance hit his nostrils, but a few wet strands of hair rubbed against his face, and Kate Winslet suddenly sat beside him, with an obvious pleasing voice in his voice, exclaimed, Director, you are so late, are you still working? Tang En looked at her sideways in doubt, and saw the exquisite and curvy side profile, which was amazing. He subconsciously swallowed his saliva and said, I'm cutting out some unnecessary scenes. Kate saw that a large cross was drawn on many of the paintings on UU's www.uugonshu.com in the script for the split. She felt strange, but didn't say anything. This is not her job. Mr. Director, I have a flight tomorrow morning. Don't work, let's rest early. Kate smiled and persuaded her gently. Tang En sneered in his heart, since you knew that you would let me rest early, why did you come over to drink coffee? Are you kidding me? I didn't care about what happened last time, but this time I dared to ride on my head. With her eyes wide open, Tang En wanted to reprimand her and teach her a lesson. When she turned around, she found that her eyes were soft, her expression was full of emotion, her delicate red lips were slightly open and her chin was slightly raised, showing her astonishing beauty. The arc of the chest is moist, and you can ask for anything. No matter how little Dun's experience is and how slow his response is, at this moment, he finally understands what Kate means. Turn out to be. Tang En felt that his heart was beating wildly, and his mouth became dry without realizing it. Hollywood, this is Hollywood. Mr. Director. Kate's limp body leaned forward lightly and pressed it directly against Dun's chest, tempting in every possible way, whispering in his ear, I was wrong last time, forgive me, okay? Tang En was at a very young age, how could he be so enchanting? He hugged her waist suddenly, got up and walked into the bedroom, glaring fiercely, humph. Whether you can forgive me depends on your performance. Kate Winslet finally breathed a sigh of relief, smiled slightly, put her jade arms around Dun's neck gently, and said in a greasy voice, Mr. Director, Ruth, please punish you. Tang En's foot was weak and he almost fell. A Hollywood female star can act like a spoiled brat with your incredible acting skills. Even a man can't stop her. Absolutely unstoppable. Landing. This is the city of Rosarito on the north side of Mexico. As early as 4 months ago, the crew purchased a 16 square kilometer area here and built a complete filming site. A large artificial lake was opened up in the shooting studio, and the famous Titanic was moored on the lake. Even with mental preparation, when you see this huge ship with the marina scenery in the early 20th century, you are still amazed, and there is a feeling of time and space dislocation. James, you did a great job. Tang En sighed and praised sincerely. Cameron's face was vicissitudes of life, and he was quite emotional. The film investment is indeed huge, but I have not wasted every penny of the crew. Come on, this guy is still complaining that Dunn robbed him of his directorship. Dunn smiled and shook his head. Can you board the ship and see? Cameron guided Dunn to board the ship, and the exclamations and respectful eyes around him made him quite proud. The carpets, tables and chairs, layout and style here are all made according to the standards of 100 years ago, and many props are from the United Kingdom. By air. Dunn nodded. Really, it's not without reason that the investment in movies is so large. This ship is so beautiful. Kate Winslet whispered, Don, I read the script and said that the ship will be destroyed in the end, is that true? Tang En said with a smile, of course not, it's an animation special effect. I can rest assured that. Leonardo DiCaprio immediately noticed something strange in Kate's words, lowered his voice and said, Hey, have you eased up with Dunn? The two get along very well, and they are good friends who can talk about everything. A smile and pride flashed on Kate's face. Of course, it's easy. How did you do it? Leonardo was surprised. He was very smart, so he didn't believe that Dunn would be as easygoing as he seemed. Kate had no intention of concealing anything, and whispered, I went to his room last night. Overnight. No wonder. Leonardo suddenly realized, joking with a smile, Don. How is he? Kate's fair face was rarely flushed, she pursed her lips, it's very strong. Wow! Leonardo laughed. Don't talk nonsense with others, Dunn will be unhappy. Kate was still cautious. I have a measure. Leonardo waved his hand indifferently. After visiting the ship, everyone went to the hotel to arrange a room, and it was decided that the filming would start in the afternoon. As a director, Dunn will naturally get the best room. He found Grant Hill and whispered, arrange Kate's room next to me. This is Hollywood, Grant certainly understands Dunn's extended meaning, no surprise, don't affect the shooting. Tang En said with a smile, don't worry, I have my senses. At this moment, the door of the room was slammed open with a bang, and James Cameron broke in angrily like a fight. Hey, Jamie, what are you doing? Grant stood up immediately, with a serious warning face. What am I going to do? Cameron angrily threw a document in his hand onto the sofa. I want to ask, what is he going to do? Grant Hill raised his eyebrows, looked at Dunn with a calm face, picked up the document from the sofa, and found that it was the script of the movie. This script was created by Cameron and painted by himself. It is exquisite and detailed, like a work of art. Only, in this exquisite painting, there are many red crosses that are very unpleasant. Don, you modified this. Grant understood the reason for Cameron's rage. Tang En said seriously, yes, this is the result of staying up late for 5 nights in a row. Grant said in a heavy tone, Don, I think you need an explanation. Cameron gritted his teeth and said, you are the director, and I respect your work, but you are just a director, and you have no right to change the script. This is Hollywood, and Hollywood rules prevail. The director is just a tool for the producer to realize the idea on film into an image on the screen. This is also the reason why many great directors also serve as producers. Tang En also investigated the sunglasses system. In terms of the ability of the director and the producer, editing, screenwriting, post-production, casting and other skills are all classified under the name of the producer, which shows the great power of the producer. In fact, since the 1990s, Hollywood has gradually moved towards the formalization of commercial films, and Hollywood films have completely become the core system of producers. No director, even a super famous director, will get editing rights. Therefore, big directors such as Spielberg and Cameron, once a film is made, must also serve as a producer, in order to control the final editing rights. However, Dunn has no fear. Grant Hill, who supports him, is the official spokesperson, and Cameron has long fallen out of favor. If it wasn't for Dunn's guilt for Cameron, he would have even teamed up with Grant long ago to completely vacate Cameron. The most important point is that Dunn's modification is in the interest of Fox Films and satisfies the relaxed mind of the entire crew, but will not shake the beauty of the movie. It's very simple, because in my opinion, the existence of those lenses is meaningless, and it will not only waste a lot of our shooting time, but also a lot of our shooting budget. Dunn looked calm, made a downward gesture to Cameron, and pointed to the sofa beside him. He is by no means aimless. To make a movie, at least dozens, or even hundreds of hours of material must be shot, and after appropriate deletion and modification, the final editing will be completed. A movie takes 2 or 3 hours, and the remaining large amount of material is of course wasted. However, in order to have more choices in the post-production of the film, producers and directors often shoot a large amount of material regardless of cost to ensure that there are enough material selections for post-editing, so as not to make up. Especially Cameron, this guy claims that the movie needs to be made 3 times. The first time is to write the script, the second time is the process of directing the film, and the third time is the final editing. What the film will be edited in the end, including Cameron himself, is uncertain. But Dunn is different. He is a movie lover. He has seen the classic masterpiece like Titanic at least 7 or 8 times. For the final film of the film, I already have a template in my heart. If that's the case, why are those discarded useless shots taken? Time-consuming, labor-consuming, and money-consuming. Cameron's anger continued. Your explanation can't impress me. James, do you think if we shoot according to this subscreen script, we can catch up with next year's summer season? Dunn stared at Cameron. In my shooting plan, we have to complete all the scenes before the end of the year. Filming, and then 3 or 4 months of post-production, before it hits theaters in mid-May next year. It's impossible. Cameron denied it at a glance. With the current progress, it will never be finished in 2.5 months. Tang En said with a smile, so, we need to revise this storyboard script. Grant understood Dunn's intentions. In the end, he was still responsible for Fox Films, and hesitantly said, Don, even in order to catch up with the schedule, it can't affect the quality of the movie. Of course. Dunn was full of confidence, flipping through the script for the split. Look at this scene, the leading actor and the supporting actor would fight each other because of Ruth, it's ridiculous. Not to mention each other's identities, just the positioning of the film is seriously affected. We are shooting a beautiful romance film, not a martial arts action film. Leonardo is not Bruce Lee. Cameron was silent. Grant Hill nodded, well, it makes sense. Tang En flipped another page at will. This scene is about the ugliness released by human beings on the edge of life and death when disaster strikes. It is cruel to fight with old and young women and children for the boat seat. Cameron immediately said, this is human nature. There are gentlemen who sacrifice themselves in front of them, and there should be lowly people here. Human nature is complicated. If it is only one way, the philosophy of film is too shallow. Dunn shook his head. It's not that I don't want to shoot, it's a on-off, simple shoot. Titanic is a catastrophe, it will make all fans feel chills, we can no longer use this fact to stab them, we need fairytale-like beautiful human nature, to alleviate the psychological trauma caused by the disaster to fans. Grant's eyes lit up, yes, Jamie, in the final analysis, this is still a Hollywood commercial blockbuster, and we can't criticize its artistry too much. Cameron sighed and fell silent again. Tang En turned another page, frowning slightly. This shot is a historical fact of the year. When the Titanic sank, a large ship California happened to pass by, but, this large ship chose to turn off the telegraph. Cameron glanced at it and shook his head, okay, little guy, you convinced me that this set of shots is indeed too indifferent, so discard it. Dunn smiled, James, thank you for your recognition. Cameron smiled wryly. He recognized some of Dunn's remarks, but a doubt arose in his heart. If all this is modified and realized according to Dunn's ideas, then this movie, is it still his movie? It's a pity that his thoughts are now irrelevant. He is nominally the first producer of the crew, but in fact, Grant Hill has taken over the power. Grant rubbed his brows and said with a bit of pain, "Don, your idea is very good, and I agree with it. It's just, you deleted 2/3 of this subscreen script. In case, I mean in the later stage when producing, there are not enough materials, so what should I do?" Dunn pointed to his head and said confidently, "Grant, trust me. The movie picture has already taken shape, and the next task just needs to be filmed." Grant sighed, "Well, your approach will save the crew a lot of money, and we can make up for it later." Dunn smiled and said, "Thank you for your support, Grant. Do you think he can do it?" Leaving Dunn's room, Grant asked Cameron quietly. Cameron shook his head, "I don't know." But then he let out a long sigh and said with emotion, "But I know, Tang En, he's a genius." If Dunn heard this scene, he would definitely laugh out loud. "James, are you praising me? Or are you praising yourself? Haha. Cut. Take a 20-minute break." Sitting in front of the camera capture screen, Dunn looked serious. Kate was sweating in a hurry. She has been NG 7 times in a row. She hurriedly trotted over and asked nervously, "Dang En, what did I do wrong?" Dunn cast a gentle smile, "Kate, you did a good job, it's my problem, go and touch up your makeup." The main producers, assistant directors, and core staff of the crew all ran over one after another. Grant asked, "Don, is there any problem?" Tang En pointed to the shot taken in front of the screen and shook his head repeatedly, "This is not the effect I want, I can't say it for a while, but this shot is not beautiful enough." This group of shots is the film's first close-up of the Titanic, supplemented by the beautiful image of the heroine Ruth standing on the bow. She wore a rose-colored top hat and a long skirt with a white and red corset, which showed the beauty and grace of the noble girl 100 years ago. It's just, Dunn always felt something was wrong. He has indeed watched Titanic many times, but his head is not a computer, so he can remember the general plot, and many details are not clear at all. But, this is already good. Several assistant directors looked hesitant and did not understand Dunn's thoughts. "James, what do you think?" Tang En sighed for a long time. It was really impossible, so he could only pass by. It's just that this is a set of opening shots, which is very important. Although the time is very short, it is a classic scene that can shock people's hearts. Tang En is not willing to be too indulgent. James Cameron has been silently pondering and thinking for a long time before finally opening his eyes, revealing 2 traces of light. "Hat. It's the hat." Tang En was startled, and then an excited smile appeared on his face. "Yes, it's a hat. Kate's hat is too restrictive. Take it off. Her brown hair is the real beauty of art." He finally discovered the odd point. It turned out that Kate Winslet in the original book didn't wear that beautiful but unsightly princess hat at all. Dunn inherited Cameron's professional skills. He believed that if he NG dozens of times, he would definitely be able to reflect the problem. It's just that Cameron, who is obsessed by the authorities and bystanders, and who no longer undertakes the task of directing, discovered this in advance. Of course, this will greatly advance the shooting schedule and reduce the shooting funds. However, when Dunn and Cameron reached an agreement, they immediately aroused strong opposition from female makeup artist Deborah Scott. "This is absolutely not possible. A noble woman 100 years ago had to wear a hat and take it off when she went out. This is very rude and shameful." Tang En said with a smile, "Ruth was originally a rebellious girl, otherwise she wouldn't fall in love with a little bastard, would she? No. What she rebels against is the oppression of human nature. Whether or not she wears a hat does not affect her character at all. Deborah Scott is a respectable stylist, her styling adds a lot of light to the movie, and she is the real hero behind the scenes." Dunn didn't want to quarrel with her, so he looked at Cameron with a smile. James, the task is up to you. Cameron shrugged, and then had a heated argument with Deborah. 10 minutes later, Dunn threw Kate's hat directly into the trash. This time, the shooting went well. Inside the crew, the cast and crew looked at each other, and among the surprises, there was more suspicion. Producer and director, what happened to these two? When they were in Los Angeles, the two went head-to-head with Mamang, and many battles broke out. The intensity of the quarrel made many unrelated people tremble with fear. But after coming to Rosarito, the two seemed to have reached a certain tacit understanding, like the closest friends, the cooperation, it's perfect. Last time, Dunn was leading the filming of a scene in which Leonardo smoked, which was strongly opposed by many production staff. Titanic has such a large investment, and it is destined to be rated PG or PG-13 in the future. There will be a large number of children watching movies all over the world, and the male protagonist will probably bring a bad atmosphere through the scenes of smoking and playing cool. However, Dunn believes that it is the coolest and most common thing for a gangster 100 years ago to have a cigarette in his mouth, and the history of the past cannot be changed because of the thoughts of contemporary people. Cameron strongly supports this idea, and believes that it is an idea that only the most outstanding directors have. This time, because of the heroine's hat, Cameron and Dunn teamed up again, with the authority of the producer and director, and pushed through many obstacles. And the effect of the shooting is indeed admirable and amazing. The filming of the film is a jumping type. The next set of shots is also shot outside the big ship. It tells that Jack met the noble girl Ruth and brought her to the bow to experience a different life. And director Dunn Walker, with his fantastic imagination, put forward a set of shocking scenes that shocked the entire crew. Leon, you're spitting down here. Yes, it's an interesting thing. You try to teach Kate how to spit, and then spit together. This is a secret to the sublimation of your relationship. As soon as Tang En's voice fell, everyone was stunned. Spit? What a joke! This kind of disgusting thing, let alone the aristocratic woman Ruth would not do it, even the little gangster Jack shouldn't do such shameless nonsense. This is pure nonsense. Don, this idea is so ridiculous, it will seriously affect the aesthetics of the movie. The always gentle producer Leigh Sanchini was rarely serious. Several assistant directors also discouraged them one after another. They must delete this scene and perform spitting on the big screen for fans. This is too obscene to film art. Grant Hill said solemnly, Don, you can't do this. Titanic tells about beautiful love, not this kind of farce. Dunn's face was a little ugly. When he looked up, he found Leonardo and Kate, and their faces were even more ugly. You two don't want to act like this. Leonardo took the lead and said, Yes, Dunn, I don't know what you think, but doing this is even more extreme than the smoking scene. Kate Winslet, a girl in her early 20s, is naturally unwilling to perform such a serious slander of her image, which is even more exaggerated than a scene, struggling to say, Don, I forget it, I see. Dunn shook his head, sighed, and turned to look at a group of onlookers. Do you all agree? Everyone's opinions were surprisingly unanimous, and they all nodded. Dunn couldn't help but smile bitterly. This is really against the whole group. I really don't know how much pressure Cameron had to bear when he filmed Titanic. This group of shots is definitely one of the most classic shots in the history of movies. Dunn was deeply impressed. James, what do you think? No way, Dunn set his eyes on Cameron. Cameron gave him a complicated look and heaved a sigh of relief. Don, even though I'm very reluctant to admit it, I have to say, you are really a genius. An unparalleled genius. He was so excited that he even uttered swear words. Tang En said in surprise, So, do you support me? Cameron said sternly, I support you 100%. Dunn, your unrestrained imagination and magical creativity are amazing. You will definitely become a world-class director. For this, I am very convinced. Grant was a little dumbfounded. Jamie, you. Isn't this a joke? Cameron shook his head and said solemnly, Grant, you need a deeper understanding. Can you imagine what effect this group of shots will have if they are released? It will definitely be criticized by the media and film critics. Grant said bitterly. Cameron shook his head. Maybe another word would be more appropriate. Yes. It's a sensation. Tang En suddenly interjected, with great aura, as confident as ever. The restaurant of Titanic was full of cast members, and the lunch on this day was very rich. Grant Hill took out a bottle of red wine in an unruly manner, and poured a glass for Dunn and Cameron himself. Grant, we have to film in the afternoon. Dunn said with a half-smile. Just a drink and toast to the two of you. Grant said very formally, not joking at all, you two, one is a genius like a lunatic, and the other is a lunatic genius. Hee, to be honest, I don't have much confidence in this project, but not in the future, you two, are Titanic's best hope. In fact, it's not just Grant Hill's feeling alone, many people have this illusion. The combination of James Cameron and Dunn Walker has created one wonderful shot after another, and they are the best partners. If they can continue to cooperate sincerely, then this movie is really likely to be a great success. Cameron nodded and raised a glass to Dunn. Young man, you did a great job. Dunn smiled restrainedly, clinking his glasses lightly. You're not bad, James. I hope we can continue to work together to make this film well and present a different Titanic to fans all over the world. I believe that this will be a great work. Grant Hill was in high spirits, looking at the vicissitudes of Cameron's bearded face and Dunn's youthful vigor. He felt a lot. Maybe, they are the leaders of future Hollywood commercial films. Grant took a sip, his eyes deep. However, at this moment, there were several screams of pain in the restaurant. Tang En's expression changed, and when he looked around, he saw that two staff members were foaming at the mouth and fell to the ground. Someone was poisoned. Dunn was shocked and shouted loudly. Dunn vaguely remembers seeing similar news on the internet before. During the filming of Titanic, a cameraman poisoned the food and drink because he was dissatisfied with Cameron's violent reprimand, which directly led to a number of incidents including Cameron. 10 people were hospitalized, forcing a 2-month halt to filming. It's just very strange. The current director is Dunn Walker, and he is far less violent than Cameron, and he is very humble to the professionals in the crew. Why does the poisoning incident still happen? Fortunately, Dunn, Cameron, and Grant were drinking and not eating. If any of these 3 people are admitted to the hospital, the filming of the crew will definitely be postponed. Check. The nature of this matter is too serious, it must be investigated. Grant Hill's rare rage, he was the first responsible for this happening on his crew. Cameron's face was ashen, gloomy, and dripping with water. In any case, he was the first producer of the film after all. Relatively speaking, Dunn was much calmer. Fortunately, this incident is not serious. Only 2 people were seriously poisoned, and the other dozen people were mildly poisoned, which did not affect the shooting plan. Catching up with the schedule is what Tang En is most concerned about at the moment. The whole crew was in a panic, and the investigation of the incident was entrusted to Grant Hill. Dunn and Cameron continued the shooting plan. Why would someone be poisoned? Cameron was incomprehensible, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm afraid this is the first time in film history. Tang En sneered, it's the first time in history that an 18-year-old director directs a commercial blockbuster with an investment of $160 million. What do you mean? Cameron heard the meaning of Dunn's words, and his anger fainted. Humph. Tang En ignored him, gave him a big back, and waved casually, it's better not what I guessed. Because of the accident in the morning, the scenes in the afternoon were adjusted to some simple scenes in the cabin. The extras were either evacuated, went to rest, or were called by Grant to participate in the investigation. After shooting several sets of shots in succession, it was approaching the evening, and finally ushered in the main event. Jack drew a sketch of Ruth in the bilge of the ship. In fact, the painting has been completed long ago. Cameron took a bikini photo of Kate Winslet and relied on his powerful imagination to draw it. A finished product and a semi-finished product. But when it came to filming, I encountered difficulties. This has nothing to do with the actors. Although Kate has no clothes on, she is graceful and graceful. The soft and beautiful body with makeup is full of artistic atmosphere. The young Leonardo also looks as usual, without any sense of shyness. Speaking of nervousness, in the filming venue after the clearing, only Dunn had the fastest heartbeat. "James, why are you left-handed?" Dunn exclaimed. Because Leonardo couldn't paint, when he took a close-up shot of the painting, he actually planned to use Cameron's hand instead of Leonardo to splash ink on the semi-finished painting. In the wide-angle shot, Leonardo is painting with his right hand. But after the words were spoken, Dunn consciously made a blunder, discriminating against left-handers. Cameron said, "Why don't you come? It just so happens that my hands are too old and don't look like the skin of a young man at all." That's right. Dunn doesn't know how to draw, but he possesses Cameron's skills. Drawing is a must-have attribute for a director. Of course, he is not bad. He stroked his sleeves and sat in Leonardo's seat. The camera lens pushed forward directly to grab the part of his arm when he was painting. The shooting was very simple. Tang En was full of confidence, picked up the pen, and was about to paint. He looked up at Kate Winslet, whose jade body was lying not far away, and paired with her affectionate eyes. Hot blood rushed to the top of the head. "Tang En, do you know how to paint?" Cameron couldn't help sneering when he saw that his pencil was randomly tugging on the paper. Kate pursed her lips, bit her lip, and tensed her face. After all, she couldn't hold back, and she laughed out loud. Cameron was stunned for a moment, then suddenly felt a little embarrassed. It's a young man after all. Dunn took a deep breath quickly, glared at Cameron, waved his hand and said, "Come again." This time, Tang En came at his fingertips and took a long shot of 2 minutes, and the semi-finished painting was basically completed. Cameron's eyes lit up. "Well, the painting is good." Tang En curled his lips in disdain. "Okay, hurry up and take a picture of the long-term view, and try to pass within 3, everyone rest early." At the end of work, Kate Winslet quietly walked past Dunn. Her tone was a little bit joking, and she pursed her lips and said, "Don, you almost made a joke when you were painting." Tang En didn't hide it, shook his head and said, "You're so charming, you're distracted." The smile on Kate's beautiful and pretty face became even stronger, and she said with a wink, "At night, are you going to continue?" Since arriving in Rosarito, most of the time, the two have slept together at night. You give me back. I'm free, look at you." Kate blinked her bright eyes, "Then let me go to my room. My fiancé asked someone to bring me a bottle of Romani Conti, from 1990. Let's have a drink together." Tang En said with a smile, "The gift your fiancé gave you, give it to me to drink, isn't it good?" Kate pursed her lips, looked around, and whispered, "I've done even worse things, let alone a glass of wine." Tang En almost mixed garlic under his feet. He couldn't help laughing at this cheerful and generous British beauty. "Okay, but I'll be there later. I have to sort out tomorrow's script first." "Okay, I'll wait for you." Kate paused for a while, and then threw a clever wink, graceful and charming. Tang En couldn't hold back a little, and laughed wickedly. "Well, come over later to taste the delicious food." Of course, Kate understood Dunn's pun, and she smiled softly. She was afraid of attracting attention. She did not dare to speak too loudly. "Would you like to taste the first one?" Cough cough. Tang En can't stand it a little bit. The acting skills of Hollywood stars, winking, sultry, Charlie's Angels. As long as they are willing, they can hook your soul out. Okay, let's talk about it at night. Grant is here, and I'll have a word with him. Dunn's mouth was dry, he bravely left and walked towards Grant Hill. How is it, have you found out? Grant's face was heavy, he shook his head and sighed. We investigated more than 80 people all afternoon, and there was no motive or suspicion for poisoning. Tang En was a little surprised. It was difficult to find evidence, but it shouldn't be difficult to find a few suspects, right? I didn't expect Grant to give this answer. No eyebrows at all. Grant shook his head, his eyes were deep, and he gritted his teeth. If I find out, I will never let him go easily. Tang En's face also became solemn, and he was silent for a moment before he said, such a big thing happened, and after an afternoon of investigation, there is still no result. If it doesn't work, call the police. Grant immediately shook his head. Fortunately, the tragedy hasn't happened yet. I have replaced a group of reliable people. I'll just pay more attention in the future. This kind of thing, it's best not to spread it out. Tang En sneered, don't spread the word? Is it a trivial matter if no one is killed? A bit of surprise flashed in Grant's eyes. Don, do you have any guesses? It's very simple, if Leon, Kate, or I are hospitalized now, who has the greatest interests? The corners of Dunn's mouth crossed a bit gloomy, or, who wants to delay my shooting the most? Plan. Mr. Grant was at a loss, and then his eyes widened, his face was incredulous, and a name was about to come out. You mean John Landau? Tang En's indifferent eyes narrowed tightly. I may ask the entire crew, who else can poison everyone's meals by surprise? Either us, or you must have enough prestige in the crew to be able to control a large group of people for their use. Grant sucked in a breath of cold air and felt a chill in his back. If it's really John Landau, that's too scary. Dunn hated John Landau very much, so Grant sent him directly to the New York studio and didn't let him follow him. He has evidence of his alibi, and this is precisely his motive for poisoning. Grant Hill only felt cold sweats. This speculation is too appalling. John Landau. That's the producer of Titanic, one of the most powerful people in the entire crew. If he does everything behind his back, will the movie still be made? And with John Landau's influence and connections in the crew, if he targets Dunn everywhere, it is absolutely impossible to guard against. No wonder he couldn't find the slightest clue for a whole afternoon. Don, I don't think it's necessary to investigate this matter any further. Grant's resolute expression was unquestionably calm. Oh? What are you going to do? A hint of suspicion flashed in Dunn's eyes. Grant smiled coldly. For some things, no evidence is the biggest evidence. Dunn, I regret not following your advice. Time flies, it has been more than half a month. With the sincere cooperation of Cameron, the filming went very smoothly. In more than half a month, most of the scenes in Rosarito have been filmed. However, for the remaining few scenes, Dunn set aside a full month of shooting time. Because the next scene is the core of the whole movie, it is the soul that makes fans buy tickets to the cinema and shed tears willingly. Play in the water. Throughout the whole Titanic, there are not many scenes in the water, but it is the essence of the whole movie. And filming in water is extremely difficult, challenging. Even though a month of shooting time was reserved, Dunn did not guarantee that it would be completed smoothly. Cameron even believes that without 50 days of shooting, it is impossible to complete this part of the scene. Dunn sighed. What he was worried about was not these, but whether Kate Winslet could resist. There are several parts to playing in the water. Some of them are shot at fixed points in the swimming pool. This is easy to handle. Just inject warm water directly into the small water tank. But most of the scenes require a lot of water. For example, the scene where the sea water pours into the cabin requires at least 3 full containers of water. Where does the crew go to get so much warm water? It is now October, and the temperature of the river water is only over 20 degrees. No one can stand it in cold water of this temperature for a long time. Especially the heroine Ruth has a lot of such scenes. After thinking for a long time, Dunn decided to start simple and shoot in the swimming pool. The scene is that after the big boat broke, Jack and Ruth were floating on the icy sea, parting of life and death. This play requires strong acting skills and soul collision, and the ground-shaking sparks of love burst out in the icy waters. Fortunately, the swimming pool is warm. Jack, I love you. Don't be like this, there's no goodbye. Hold on, do you understand? I'm cold. Ruth, you're sure to get out of trouble, to have a lot of children, to watch them grow up, and then to live in peace. You're going to heaven in a warm, comfortable bed, not here, not tonight, not dying like me, you understand? My body is already numb. Hearing this, Tang En sighed, stop. Come here first and rest for 10 minutes. In the whole crew, the atmosphere is very serious. Dunn was wearing a thick waterproof suit and carried the camera wrapped in the waterproof suit on his shoulders. He slowly climbed up to the swimming pool, looked at Cameron with a gloomy face, and shook his head. This shot has been filmed for 6 hours. According to Dunn's understanding, it's best to have a long, stable shot, freeze on this life and death lover, and use the most objective attitude to examine the love between Jack and Ruth from the perspective of a bystander, rather than participating in too many trick clips. Generally speaking, this is a common method used by European literary films to express the sublimation theme. It's a pity that the shooting effect is not very good now. That kind of icy and biting feeling, the sadness of life and death, the reluctance to part. Whether it's Leonardo or Kate, the emotions are not well expressed. How are you okay? Cameron came over with a concerned expression on his face. Leonardo and Kate's performances were hard, but director Dunn was equally hard. He carried a 20-pound camera and stood with them in the swimming pool all the time. Even if it was warm water, such a powerful load would be enough to crush anyone. Dunn shook his head, knowing that Cameron could help with the shooting, but he had to refuse, with a firm expression, if I, the director, can't hold on, how can I ask my actors? Cameron patted him on the shoulder and said in approval, Don, well said. My body is already numb. Winning the ticket is the luckiest thing in my life, it's a real honor, it's an honor for me to meet you. Ruth, you must promise me to live, you can't give up, no matter what happens, no matter what the circumstances are, Ruth, promise me. I promise you. Do not forget. I will never forget. Jack, I will never forget. Cut. Tang En's face was not good looking, and his tone was a little heavy. Leon, you have to remember that you are about to die, every word of yours is the last word in your life, and you should put the solemnity of your life on the verge of death. The performance with the sense of holiness is just simply powerless, this performance is too superficial. Leonardo was very ashamed. I'm sorry, Dunn, I'll try to understand. Kate, remember what I said? You have to express your emotions as complex as possible, you have to have fear, you have to be sad, you have to work hard to live, and to fulfill the firm belief that Jack entrusted to you. But what did I see? Stupid, dull, lifeless. It was the first time Dunn said such harsh words to her. Kate Winslet bit her lip tightly and refused to make a sound. Forget it, go ashore. Dunn paused and turned his head. I'm sorry, Kate, I take back what I just said, don't take it to heart. Kate forced a smile, which was ugly. On the shore, Dunn announced an important decision to everyone, fix the sink on the west side. After half an hour, we'll go there and shoot. Ah! Isn't this set of shots taken? Tang En raised his brows, who said we wouldn't shoot? Didn't you say, ah? Dunn, you are going to shoot this set of scenes in cold water. An assistant director suddenly realized and exclaimed. Dunn nodded heavily. I do think so. This shot is very important, it is the sublimation of the soul of the whole movie, we must be perfect. For some unimportant literary dramas, in order to catch up with the schedule, we have to live by it. But such an important lens must not be missed. Leonardo and Kate fell silent when they heard the news, and there was a kind of fear in their eyes. They've had enough of filming in warm water, if it's cold. Cannot imagine. The New York studio where John Landau was sent by Grant Hill naturally became the top leader here. The New York studio is mainly green screen shooting, and the scheduled shooting cycle is 15 days. At this moment, John Landau and his confidant assistant Raymond were in the office, whispering something. We've already made contact. It doesn't matter whether the wire breaks or the induction fails. In short, we have already conceived more than a dozen plans to create obstacles for that kid. Raymond blinked his left eye a few times in succession, and a cold smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. John Landau tapped on the table rhythmically with one hand. You control this matter yourself, you must be foolproof, and don't be stingy with the hush money. This time, I must teach him a profound lesson. As he spoke, John Landau was a little angry. Back then, when he was in the studio in Los Angeles, that kid Tang En scolded himself in front of everyone in the crew. Did he really think he was the director? Raymond smiled. Don't worry, I promise to give that kid a memory that will last a lifetime. At this moment, John Landau's agent called. John, something happened. The agent's voice was urgent. What's wrong? John Landau looked puzzled. The agent held back his anger and said, Fox Pictures just notified me that it has terminated the employment contract with you. What? John Landau's expression changed suddenly, and he stood up suddenly. This is impossible, they have no reason to do this. The agent said solemnly, John, did you do something wrong? What's wrong? John Landau felt a little guilty. Economic humanity, the people at Fox said, that you have seriously affected the filming of the film, and have informed the lawyer that they will terminate the contract with you immediately. John Landau was a little dumbfounded. What's the situation? He wanted to create difficulties for Dunn's shooting, slow down his shooting progress, and prevent the movie from being released in the summer of next year, so as to dampen the confidence of Fox film executives in Dunn. However, that was just an idea, not yet implemented. It's impossible, they have no evidence, it's slander. John Landau firmly believed that his plan could not be known to the people of Fox. The agent sighed, John, I don't know what you did, but Fox's people are obviously really angry. The lawyer has already sent me the termination contract. They can't do this. John Landau couldn't help shouting, I didn't do anything, they have no evidence. They can't unilaterally tear up the agreement without any reason. The agent felt helpless. John, have you forgotten the contents of the contract? Fox signed the contract with you. The fixed budget of UU reading www.uugonshu.com Titanic is $85 million, and a fluctuation of no more than 10% is allowed. If the budget is seriously exceeded, Fox Pictures has the right to at any time terminate the contract. John Landau was suddenly dumbfounded. He really didn't expect that Fox Pictures would come to the bottom of the pot. It's just, why? John Landau was puzzled. With his current status and fame in Hollywood, even if he really made some minor mistakes, it would be impossible to terminate the contract in such a rude way. No, there must be something happening here that he doesn't know about. John Landau was not stupid, he pondered for a while. Where's Jamie? Has he been fired too? The agent denied, no, James is still filming in Mexico. There was a buzz in John Landau's mind, and he suddenly felt a whirlwind. The culprit of the budget overrun was not fired, but his assistant was fired. Is there any reason? However, such a result confirmed the judgment of John Landau just now. Someone is deliberately targeting themselves. Is it Dunn Walker? John Landau's body became cold. He had a conflict with Dunn, but Dunn. It's impossible for him to be so narrow-minded that he directly put pressure on Fox's executives to fire him with a tough stance, right? Paul, there is something strange in this matter, you help me find out. John Landau couldn't help but feel the pain. On his side, he is also interested in designing, and intends to trick Dunn Walker. Unexpectedly, he turned around and received a dismissal contract. Why is this? John Landau wanted to cry but had no tears.